Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's okay. And this is the first week that the early starters have started. And next week, I think everybody will be back to work, pretty much everybody. And things will start moving a bit more. But yeah, just thinking about this whole situation that's happening in America with Venezuela and a lot of the politics that's coming out of it, it really makes me think about people's nervous systems. And the reason I'm talking about nervous systems is, as Jehovah's ex Jehovah's Witnesses, what was hijacked was our nervous system, and our nervous system overrides everything else, right? So, if you if you are hungry, your nervous system is going to make sure everything is pounding towards that hunger. And I did a fast a couple a few years ago, just over a year ago. I did a fast, and in this fast, it was a complete and total fast, right? So I didn't eat any food at all. It was a total of about 10 to 13 days. So the first 3 days, you're having soups and water, no solid foods to prepare for the 7 day fast where you have no food at all. And I had no food, just water. And one of the things I learned in that experience was you feel these hunger pains, but if you just sort of get through it, especially the early days, you come out on the other side, you haven't eaten any food, maybe you just drank some water, and you're actually fine, right? And this would happen periodically. And one of the things I realized was our nervous systems were hijacked by food companies, right? By adding sugar. They actually engineered the food to get us to behave this way. They took over our nervous systems. Because sometimes you feel hungry when you're not hungry. I went for 7 days without eating. In those 7 days, the last 3 days, I had energy to run. I was running 5 kilometers, right? And I was running with a verb. I was running better than I ran when I was eating. And that's the weirdest thing to think about, that I was probably using the energy from a lunch that I had 2 years ago, and it was stored in my body, right? Um, and that's why I'm back into running now, just to get my body moving and all of that stuff, right? Starting to look good. um, but still got to work on the old tummy. Um, but anyways, so you feel hungry, and the hunger triggers are so real. You feel dizzy. Everything is just, you gotta have food. I was dreaming of pizza. I was dreaming of burgers. That's how hungry you would feel at times. But when that feeling goes away, there's a peace. You don't have those thoughts swarming your head. You don't have the dizziness. You are fine. You got energy. You're talking. You're good, and you're living your life. You're actually functional, right? Now you have to be careful. Even when I was running, I was just checking myself. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Um, but to go for 7 days without having a single thing of food, and in the last, I was supposed to do 3 days to sort of off ramp. So I had soup, I think, the first day. Then I started having smoothies the second day. And so at some point, I just started eating food. I know I didn't finish the full 3 days. So it was like maybe 7 days of no food, then in total, 10 to 12 days, right, with no solid food. And our nervous system is so real. It, 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 when you feel that hunger, it's very real and present. But when it passes, you realize it was fake. What was happening was my my body is used to having sugar at a certain point, and having that spike of sugar in your body, then insulin rushes to clean that sugar out. Then you have an insulin rush. And when the sugar is finished and the insulin is there, you need sugar again. So you're kind of going on the cycle. And that cycle, it's your nervous system now that's trained to say, okay, cool, now we need sugar and now we need this. And the way it actually controls you. Um, After that fast, I started noticing times when I would go to the fridge for no reason, right? I ate an hour ago, 2 hours ago, I'm fine, but I'm just going to the fridge just to stand there and say, but why am I trying to eat now? You know, and our nervous systems are so powerful in that sense. And when you look at how people are behaving and how society is, it's our nervous systems on overdrive. That's what politics is, that's what business is. So I'll tell you this, in my business, right? I work with entrepreneurs and I myself am building a business, so I relate to them. And you can give somebody a pricing strategy that makes sense. You tell them this is your break even point and this is where you're going to be profitable, etc., etc. But they struggle to defend their prices because of their nervous system, or they feel they have to keep charging more because of their nervous system, right? If you don't feel safe, your mechanism for finding that safety, maybe I have to charge the most, I have to get the most out of this person, or it's no, I don't want to charge too much and that person won't like me, or whatever the case might be. And a lot of those responses come down to nervous system. And here's what I found: when strategy and nervous system collide, the nervous system is going to win. And I love business because it's you're developing yourself actively. You're not just reading some theory somewhere. This is you actually doing it, building your capacity to tolerate certain things. So when I was fasting, uh, in the beginning, I had to develop the ability, the capacity to tolerate hunger, for a period of time, and just to survive that hunger feeling that attacks your body. Um, and that's what entrepreneurship is. You're just building your capacity to tolerate certain things. Because when it comes to business, it's pretty mechanical, it's pretty standard. But the reason people struggle is in the early phase of businesses, believing in yourself. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe it's going to happen, And then once you started, you have to continue. And in the continue part is commitment, right? You got to commit to this thing. And this is where the phrases of keep the faith, consistency, discipline come in. And when it comes to finishing, right, there's a different psychology. This is about I finished my course, right? I kept the faith, because in the middle part, the messy part, you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know if things are going to work out. You just have this belief and you just sort of moving forward. If you're lucky, you've got people in your life that modeled it for you. So you're able to, it's going to happen, right? It's not even a question of belief, it's a knowing. So all of these things are nervous system things. And just watching what's happening in the world gives us these clues that something is going on with the nervous system of people. And there are people and organizations, whether it's nefarious or it just happens to be, who do things that speak to your nervous system, and you find yourself instinctively reacting, right? And so as a black person, if somebody says a racial slur, recently a neighbor told me, a white guy told me that another white guy, who's a neighbor, was calling me as a racial slur, right? And it's almost like they want to have that power over you to, if I say this word, it's going to make you feel this way, and I've just grown past that, it, to me, when somebody says something like that, it's more of a confession. They're confessing more of what they are than they are, saying anything about me, because they don't know me from above. So, you know, you don't have to take that on, and but if your nervous system is not, if you haven't trained your nervous system to have the capacity to deal with that or ignore that and be okay, you're going to struggle, right? You're really going to struggle. And that's where people get caught up in these things. So things like that, right? The racial slurs become mechanisms for control to get people's brains scrambled from whatever we're talking about or whatever's going on, right? So it shows up in so many different things. Like the whole thing of pumping the smell of food out of a store. They know your body's nervous system is trained. Even if they don't know, they just know if we pump the food, people are going to come, right? So those are the ways that our nervous systems are hijacked. There's the neuro linguistic programming. It sounds fancier than it is, but people find ways to speak to your nervous system, and people respond. And in today's world, it's all nervous system, right? When you look at politics, when you look at the economy, business, people forget that we constructed this economy, we constructed the rules of this game, and we can change them if they don't suit us. But the nervous system kicks in, and people are afraid they're going to lose what they have. People are afraid they're going to be seen a certain way if this thing goes that way or that way, if they're the one to do this, right? So there are all these traps that are laid out for us. And I guess that's life. That's life, to navigate your nervous system, you know. But that's why for me, I'm doing these videos. Part of it is vocalizing the journey that I've been on and that I'm currently on, both as from a religious perspective, from a family culture, upbringing background, and from a business perspective and finance perspective, right? Um, I saw how my parents' nervous systems reacted to certain things, and I was taking on the same characteristics, right? One of the reasons I don't do debt is I noticed a pattern where my father, we lost the house because it was a mortgage. And while that's common, there were other debts that came on. And when I started doing the same thing, getting into debt, initially it was to pay off my university school fees, but then it started snowballing. And I just thought to myself, this is the pattern. This keeps recurring. And growing up in that household, I don't think, from a nervous system perspective, I was trained in the way that I can use debt effectively. So I have to stay away from debt. Now, that means my journey is a little bit slower. So if I'm buying a piece of property, I'm buying cash, right? And that's going to take me a lot longer. But by the time I'm now taking debt, um, you know, in my mind, you'd rather build something that's not going to crumble. It's about preservation rather than just accumulation. And that's what I'm training my nervous system for, right? It's a long term, right? I'm not trying to have a big empire in the next 6 months. It just doesn't work like that. We're talking about building something. So everything that you build has to last, right? You can't build something that just crumbles like that. You're wasting your time. You keep going back to the start, and you have this hustle mentality of just we're starting something. Oh, there's another thing there. You gotta continue and you gotta finish, right? You gotta keep the faith, right? So the nervous system, as we consume this news, my mindset is just, what is this doing to my nervous system, right? And what's what's in it for me. We talked about financially and things that we need to do to prepare. And again, we're preparing not for the next 6 months, we're preparing for the next 10, 20, 30 years. Because, if you die, you die, right? But if you live, you're going to be around in 30 years. And you're going to have to figure out how to survive if you've been taking steps now to prepare for in 30 years or 20 years. You'll be in a better position. And the whole compounding thing is small actions daily and consistently over time will create these amazing results, right? And, so that's more important than these big wins. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. Nervous system, it's something we have to be vigilant about and be actively training our nervous systems, because if we don't, other people will. So, where does the nervous system show up? Like I talked about earlier, in business, it's a best place I can use this to demonstrate this. If you look at why companies are making revenue, it's a lot of it is nervous system. It's a scarcity mindset. It's fear of rejection, right? It's a fear of being perceived a certain way, right? Um, based on your belief system. So now, if you go in with a certain price, some people, they don't want to be those people that charge too high and are seen a certain way. I don't want to act like a rich person because my family's gonna treat me a certain way. So the way you think people are going to perceive you creates fear, and you react immediately, and you accept a discount or you accept a lower amount, right? Or you are supposed to you've got the right price, but you need now to sell more volume. The reason you're unable to get to that volume is the fear of the no, right? You got to go door to door and sell your charge keys or your widgets. Um, but you struggle with the no. And that's the journey. And that's the beauty of business. You go through, you knock on 1,000 doors, the no doesn't affect you, right? Growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, that's one of the things that I'm grateful for. Knocking on doors every day, and people, when in the neighborhood, when you're knocking on doors, you hear people speaking inside the house. Oh, those Jehovah's Witnesses, they're here. So people don't want to see you, but you're knocking on the door, you push through, and you just develop a thing where it doesn't phase you like that. It does phase you when it's now your product that you built. Oh my goodness, when it's you who's built the thing, then it affects you, right? It really does. So yeah, that's revenue on the spending side of things. Because again, in business, it's your income skills. You got to bring in revenue. How do you grow your revenue? How do you scale your revenue? But you can't just grow your revenue and scale your revenue willy nilly. You can lose the entire business. You got to manage your costs as you're doing it, right? But let's say your business is just running smoothly. You got your revenue. If you mess up in your spending, you'll destroy your business, right? Or even your personal finances. So spending habits, spending patterns, it all comes down to nervous system. Why do you smoke? Why do you drink alcohol? And why do you keep doing it even when you know you don't have the money, right? Or spending on gifts and giving and buying people things. You're afraid that if you don't buy these gifts, these people are going to love you and they're not going to stay in your life, right? It comes back, it always comes back to these basic things. That's what shows up on your financial statements, on your budget, why you met your budget or why you didn't meet your budget. It's all nervous system. And it's very important that we take back control of our nervous systems. I'm working on something where I'm going to build this out a little bit. That's for my business, to help entrepreneurs who struggle, because a lot of times as a business person, you're building what you're doing and you're talking to the people you need to talk to and you're doing what you need to. Um, and this type of stuff becomes a blind spot. And people like me, we come in and try to help you understand those things and understand why the numbers that you're trying to meet, you struggle sometimes, and how you self-sabotage those numbers. Now, if you're not the one sabotaging them, you can find the issue and fix it. That's easy. That's pretty standard. It's very difficult when you're the one who's sabotaging your own numbers, right? Um, that's you're gonna need help there. And I think just doing some videos around that would be helpful to people. But nervous system, right? Nervous system, we gotta work on our nervous systems. And just be careful that we're not getting roped into things that we didn't sign up for, right? Particularly with the politics, the economy. I mean, we're going to be roped into things anyways, but I mean, psychologically, emotionally, and from your nervous system perspective, just to be on the careful side. Anyways, just thought I'd have a easy Friday chat with you guys. Really enjoy these videos. They help set my day. And, after a run, just come sit and chat. And so I'll see you guys on Monday. Hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.